Hey, we're back with another podcast of All About Nothing, and today our guest is Kevin Morrison. Kevin, introduce yourself.
Yeah, so grew up in the 8th Congressional District. I've been a county commissioner for the last 7 years. I am the first Democrat to hold my seat after beating the chairman of the Illinois Republican Party, and I've been deeply rooted here in the Northwest suburban community and actually care about making a difference and making the lives of our families better, and that's what got me involved in public service.
Okay. What is in our last podcast we did a couple months ago, is there been new significant developments in your campaign?
Well, as our campaign is now approaching 200 endorsements, which is an incredibly humbling experience, it's still me up against 5 multimillionaires. We've got super PACs involved in this race now, one who supports no regulations whatsoever to artificial intelligence. And so it means working extra hard, making phone calls, raising dollars, and talking to voters. And so we've been pushing out volunteers every single day to talk about what's at stake in this coming primary, and we've been working hard to earn everyone's support.
You know what's interesting about artificial intelligence? I wrote something and I posted it online, and somebody says, "Oh, that's clear AI," and I was like, I was writing way before AI. If you look at my blog, AI did not exist in 2015 or 2011. So it's just like it needs to be regulated at some point, don't you think?
Well, AI did exist. It just was definitely not as advanced as it is today.
Yeah.
But yeah, common sense regulations is key. Yes, we need to make sure that we are allowing for innovation, but the last thing we want is a Skynet Terminator scenario. And so common sense regulations are a good thing. They keep us safe, they keep our food healthy for us to eat, they make sure that our air is clean, and that's why it's important to have competent government.
Yeah, that is so true. What feedback have you received from your constituents that influence your campaign priorities?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, one of the reasons why I jumped in this race to begin with is I was hearing from the residents of the 8th that they felt like they did not have leaders in Congress that were actually fighting for everyday people or understanding the issues that they were dealing with. And I've been active in our community since 2009. I grew up in Elk Grove Village in the heart of the district, and all I've ever cared about was how to improve the communities around me. And so I hope to instill a return of faith that their federal leaders actually care about the issues that they're dealing with.
So with the rise of inflation, it's the price of eggs has not gone down, and I don't think they're going to continue to go down at all. And you have other food service industries that's just bloating and inflating prices. How do you advocate for someone like that?
Yeah, well, I would say...
Or families. I'm sorry to cut you off. Families as well.
Yeah, I would first and foremost say we have to hold big corporations accountable. We need to make sure that they cannot continue price gouging while our families are already struggling. But also we need to return checks on this president. These unhinged, politically motivated tariffs have caused everything from housing prices to balloon to the cost of food and everyday goods. And returning checks and balances on this president are going to be key, which means winning back the House, but making sure that we're pushing forward policies that allow for upward mobility. That is something that I've done well as a county commissioner. I created a nationally recognized one-stop shop to help aspiring entrepreneurs start new small businesses, allowing for growth in the middle class, and we need leadership like that on the federal level.
In the Supreme Court ruling for reproductive rights for women, who I was raised in a house with all women, it's several sisters, a mom, so my dad and I was the only ones out there together hanging out and supporting women's rights. How do the Supreme Court just a ruling affect the reproductive rights, healthcare accessibility? How do you address those concerns in Congress?
Yeah, well, I mean, the respect for bodily autonomy is a key component. I also grew up with 2 strong women. My mom, in the earliest days, was a single mother, so it was me, my mom, and my sister. I'm proud that I've been able to take leadership on the county level to make reproductive health care a protected class for 5.2 million people. In Congress, we need to codify Roe. It is part and parcel that women should be able to make these incredibly important decisions about their bodies with their healthcare professionals and not government officials.
What about education affordability in your district? How do you see, or healthcare, or I'm sorry, education across the United States, especially in Illinois? Yeah. We don't rank the top.
Yeah.
You know, how do we get there?
Well, I'm proud to be endorsed by the Illinois Federation of Teachers. I'm a product of public schools. I went to District 54 and 211 schools in the northwest suburbs. And, I was fortunate to go to some of the best funded public schools in the state of Illinois. Now, our Supreme Court has ruled that when it comes to public education, the Constitution does not guarantee a right to public education, but through government action, we've created a right to a basic public education. What I want to fight for in Congress is a right for high quality public education for all residents in America. I think it's our biggest opportunity lost when we're not investing in our youth, and that's something I seek to change. But then also when it comes to universal pre-K, ensuring childcare for parents so that they could work, that is not going to make them have to make decisions about food, housing, or their future planning. It needs to be affordable. But also creating pathways to allow for everyone to access higher education without having to go 6 figures in debt is crucially important to investing in the residents here in this nation.
I know healthcare is so expensive. It was interesting. I was in Spain, and my friend, she got sick, and we go to the hospital, and we're both. She was expecting to pay thousands of dollars because you go to emergency room in any part of the United States, it's $2,000 with miscellaneous fees alone. And the healthcare there her bill was $78, and it was just like, wow. And it's average, even an average person or single family cannot afford. It's a health disparity in our city. Where you have hospitals are closing. We only have several trauma centers now. From back in the 80s, we had more hospitals and trauma centers than we do now. And also, people are using the ER as their doctor, their private doctor. How do you address some of those issues with health disparities in your district as well as around Illinois?
Yeah, well, I'll go back to the first part. I was knocking doors right after the holiday, and I met a woman whose daughter moved to Germany because they guarantee healthcare and higher education, and she had just given birth, and it cost her $18. $18.
Really?
It's unbelievable. What it would cost for a woman here in America is just, it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
We are the only industrialized nation that doesn't guarantee universal healthcare, affordable healthcare, and higher education. It actually causes healthcare costs to balloon for all of us. When people are adequately insured, that means regular health checkups, that means finding things early, and that means that costs are far less. And when we are creating a system that means so many folks have to choose between housing or healthcare, people are going to choose to be housed. And that means more emergency room visits that also ensure that healthcare costs are going to go up for all. So creating pathways that ensure that we have a fair tax system that guarantees access to healthcare for all is key and partial. And that's why I support universal healthcare and any pathway to get us on par with every other major industrialized nation.
So when we talk about healthcare, we talk about Medicare for all. People think like Medicare is free. It's not free. Can you dive into that a little bit or explain a little clarity?
Yeah, well, when it comes to all of these programs that assist our population, they all come from federal tax dollars, which at its root come from taxation. But that is one of the reasons why we need a fair tax system. We need to make sure that we're getting rid of loopholes that allow the wealthiest amongst us to not pay their fair share. There are so many loopholes that allow multi-billionaires to pay almost zero in income tax, or pull out loans where they're taking loans on their stocks instead of ever having to cash out those stocks and paying into the tax system. So all of that needs to be adjusted, and it can be done. It's done in many other industrialized nations, and that is one of the ways that we can ensure that we are creating, be it Medicare for all or universal health care that allows everyone affordable and accessible health care here in the country.
Thank you. So now we're going to move on to artificial intelligence, AI. What do you think about AI reshaping the workforce and also education?
Yeah. Well, hey, as all innovation is, there are pluses and minuses. This is going to be a tool that can be incredibly helpful, but when it comes to its impact on the workforce, that of course is concerning. We need to make sure that we are prepared, and government officials often do not think ahead, which is a problem, but we need to be prepared for potential impacts to the workforce and how we're going to keep people whole and employed as we're seeing this new technology come into fruition. I'm actually the chairman of technology and innovation at Cook County. I help lead the charge when it comes to our AI regulatory framework at Cook County to protect the personal data of our 5.2 million residents. I'm proud of the work I've done on that front, but we need to make sure that we are seeing federal regulation that is thoughtful, but also safeguards against any potential, dangers that might come with it, right? Like when we are investing in artificial intelligence that impacts robots, I mean, many of us have seen the movie The Terminator.
Right, exactly.
We don't want to get to that point. But we want to make sure that we are being wise. And, there are conversations in Congress too about preempting states from enacting their own AI policies. I think what we need is a base level on the federal side, and we need to allow states and localities to do what's best for their residents as well.
It's interesting because I was reading a couple weeks ago, it could be a month or so ago, where a college student was writing his thesis and it was written by AI. Or the professor said it was written by AI, he said it wasn't. So now you go with he said, she said. And do you think that in education, or like for instance, a high school student, it should be, I think some parts of AI is making people dumb. Spelling words, paragraphs, things like that, instead of actually learning how to do it or getting the correction from it. What do you think about AI so far as with using it in elementary school or high school or different colleges?
Yeah, well, I think in every one of those levels, people need to be incredibly thoughtful. No, I don't think that individuals should be skirting their own work requirements and using artificial intelligence to, not do their own schoolwork. But I mean, in terms of like dumbing down the population, I need to see the data. I need to see what its actual impact has been. I'm someone who does my research before making decisions, and meeting with experts is key. And that's why, as these crucial conversations are happening, you need to make sure that you're having individuals with adequate knowledge helping influence the policies that are being put forward.
Okay. We're going to move on to housing and homeless and the policies about housing insecurities. Do you have insecurities in your district?
Of course. I mean, too often I knock doors and, I find parents whose kids can't afford housing and they're still living at home even after college. We have seen housing costs balloon. The national figure is that we have 7 million less housing locations than we should at this point in time with our population. That has only gotten worse with these tariffs on construction materials, which are causing housing costs and construction costs to balloon here in our nation. So first and foremost, getting rid of these tariffs and ensuring that we can get those materials at a fairer price, but also seeing federal investment to be able to help get rid of that gap. That 7 million housing gap in this nation is going to be incredibly important. But yeah, when it comes to the northwest suburbs, individuals, often find it hard to be able to afford housing, and that is something that we need to tackle, especially as a millennial, where my generation feels like the American dream's out of reach. Finding ways for people to see upward mobility also needs to be a key component of it.
And with that comes, I believe, maybe substance abuse or recovery with the homeless generation, or people living on the lake or the park year round. I want to say, how does that affect your campaign? Or are you viewing people living in the park or in the subway or on the train? Because you take the train to your home in the suburbs. How does that affect you?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, everyone needs to be treated with dignity and respect. Now, long-term, unassisted individuals who are dealing either with mental health or substance abuse issues, it is sometimes difficult, even when there are shelters available, to get them to take that choice. There's issues when it comes to trust. But I think what is incredibly important is dealing with the problem at its root. So that means, creating programs like I did at the county when it came to our brand new mental and behavioral health department, which is not only helping expand mental health resources, but is helping individuals who are dealing with substance abuse issues as well on their path to recovery. It is creating more affordable assistance programs to help individuals who are dealing with substance abuse, but it's also ensuring that we are seeing more funding when it comes to creating short-term housing to deal with people who are unstably housed, so that they don't end up on the streets in the first place. I've helped see county investment in new housing throughout the suburbs that helps individuals not only with wraparound services when it comes to mental health or substance abuse issues, but also helps them in terms of training them on how to create a resume or how to prepare for an interview. All of those types of programs are incredibly important, and if we had them on scale to deal with people when they're dealing with a hard moment, it can help ease some of those burdens we see down the road of individuals who have been continuously unhoused for a decade or more.
Okay. So as we approach your election, which is March
17th
of this year, you heard it, everybody, March 17th, people are going to be going to the polls. The polls in Illinois or Chicago just opened up, and even in your suburb area. What are your districts? And then I got another question is, what message do you want to share with voters in your district?
Yeah. So the district is quite large. It has portions of Chicago and Norridge, Rosemont, Des Plaines. The Des Plaines portion goes all the way out to Kane, Pingree Grove, Gilbert's, north to Carpentersville, south to St. Charles, Batavia, Geneva. Over the Rolling Meadows area, there's an arm that goes up through Rolling Meadows and Palatine, and south into DuPage, Itasca, Medina, Roselle, Hanover Park, Bartlett, Wooddale, Carroll Stream, Addison, Schaumburg, South Barrington, Elgin, South Elgin. It is a very large district. If you look up the Illinois 8th Congressional District map, you will be able to find whether or not you reside within it. But what I would say to the voters out there as they're making their decision is, please do your research. If someone is sending you a mail piece every single day, that mail piece likely costs over $30,000. So question, who potentially owns that individual's votes? I'm running against 5 multimillionaires, and we are definitely punching above our weight class. But research each candidate, see whether or not they've served before. Do they have experience getting big policies through the finish line? I'm the only candidate in this race with not only a track record of taking on big Republicans and winning when I beat the chairman of the Illinois Republican Party, but getting major policies done. I created our mental and behavioral health department, a nationally recognized one-stop shop to help aspiring entrepreneurs start new businesses. I expanded language access on the ballot from 4 to 12 languages. And at a time where we're seeing women's rights and LGBT rights under attack, I made reproductive health care and gender identity protected classes for 5.2 million people. I know how to get things done, and I actually have had an open door policy the last 7 years as a commissioner. We need access to our elected officials. So I'm not going to be one of those offices that you reach out to and don't get a response. And that's also incredibly important as you're making your decision.
So we're going to wrap this up, but I want people to know who you are, because I think your background is very interesting. Because as my dad would say, you're a blue-collar worker. You were raised in a pizza place. Tell everybody about that.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, my grandparents were off-the-boat Italians. They came here with nothing. They were able to experience the American dream just in their lifetime. And, it's definitely their story that, I think about all the time in terms of my interest in public service. But then I think about my mother, Bruna, who has run the restaurant since I was a kid. And, sitting up at one of the front booths and hearing time and time again, every time a customer would come in and ask to speak to the owner, every time my strong Italian mother would come out, she'd get the same response. Excuse me, I asked to speak to the owner.
We're at the pizza restaurant now.
And, I do credit witnessing that with opening my eyes at a young age to all the other inequities around me. And at the age of 10, I started telling my mom that no matter what job I end up in, it needs to be directed at giving back to our community and helping improve the lives of others. I saw my family's pizzeria, our mom and pop shop, giving back to the surrounding community. We'll do fundraisers for customers who are dealing with high healthcare costs, where the bulk of what comes in that night goes to help a family in need. And it was seeing, how important our small business was to the surrounding community that also inspired me. And so it is a key component in who I am as a person. I do not come from independent wealth. I come from, a working class, small business owned family. And I think that's also really important in our leadership as well, as understanding, putting in a hard day's work to try to get ahead and to take care of your family. And that's something I want to take with me into the halls of Congress.
So let's not hold back a little bit, because the average person without a college degree goes to night school.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
I went 5.5 years taking night classes to get a law degree. I was a full-time commissioner. I still was doing volunteer work. I sat on a national board, but I took night classes for 5.5 years to get my law degree. I graduated cum laude in December of 2024. I took the February bar, which studying for the bar is one of the craziest things next to running for Congress that I've ever done.
Kennedy failed it once, I believe.
Right. Oh my God. Hey, I passed the first time, and then like a crazy person who really wants to save the world and make it better for everyone else, what do? I immediately jump in a race for Congress, because right now we need leadership who actually wants to fight for everyday people and help improve the world around them.
I like your background because you're like the average Joe on the street. You worked, you volunteered just like any mom or dad would, and then you go to night school to make your family better, make your family educated, because education, they can't take that away from you. How do you plan on delivering some of that mojo that you have to Congress?
The funny thing is, when I ran for commissioner the first time, I never thought that I could inspire other people. I was actually bullied from 4th grade to sophomore year. All I've ever wanted to do is make a difference. And make
so you're the
world
nerdy
better.
kid with glasses.
Right. I mean, hey, I'm a history junkie who loves science, who's a bit nerdy, but also likes spicy food, travel, and going out and dancing and having a good time. So I'm a amalgamation of all of the different things. But people say I'm relatable. They recognize I wear my heart on my shoulder, that I actually genuinely care about people I've never met before and the issues that they're dealing with and finding solutions. And, right now we have too few leaders like that. So when it comes to, what I want to inspire in Congress is, first and foremost, I want our electorate to see that they have federal leaders who understand their issues and are fighting to help make their lives better. But also I want to show folks that, everyday working class people could hit it big, could make it to the halls of Congress, and are not going to walk around those halls thinking that the title that they won makes them better than anyone else, because every job in this country has worth. We're all providing for everyone. And I'm sick and tired of individuals who think that just because they won a title, it makes them better than anyone else, and that needs to change.
All right, so we're going to wrap this up with 3 lightning round questions.
Yes.
If you're elected, what is the first bill or amendment you would try to influence, not just support?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we need to claw back all these power grabs by the Trump administration. We need to make sure that cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP are immediately reversed, because they will be disastrous for our communities. And yes, no matter if you do not rely on that program, it will hit your pocketbooks as well. So those reversals are going to be, first and foremost, the most important things that we could be doing.
Next question. Who in Congress, past or present, best represents how you govern?
That is such a difficult question, because I feel like my governing style is different. I feel like in an elected office, we have too many people who burn bridges, cause bad blood, and hold grudges. I don't do any of that. For me, no matter if we have differences, I try to find common ground and find pathways for us to better represent our shared constituents. So, I have a unique leadership style, and that's the leadership style I'm going to bring with me in Congress, and why I'm going to get big things done.
In one sentence, what is the most single problem in the 8th district that Washington most misunderstands?
Yeah, I would say that I think they assume, like all other congressional districts, it's the person who's raised the most amount of money that the people on the ground look at the best. As I'm going door to door, I'm hearing from folks that they want working class folks. They want people with actual lived experience, and taking the time to meet with them face to face actually is crucially important. So, the naysayers who say, oh, you shouldn't be taking time knocking on doors, I think that's crucially wrong, because meeting someone face to face makes all the difference.
Last question. What does working families mean to you in real terms?
Yeah, I would say it is having to, put yourself forward, doing a job that either you like or dislike, but doing it for the betterment of your family, and helping try to ensure that they have a strong livelihood to look forward to, and trying to uplift your family. My grandparents started off by selling vegetables on the side of the street. They were able to open up a snack shop, eventually a pickup and delivery pizzeria, and then a couple small businesses later, the restaurant that we have today that's 57 years old and is a staple to the community, gives back to the community, and is helped put me and my sister in college. And my sister is a state's attorney. She works in the sex crimes unit. She's literally doing God's work, giving back and fighting back against some of the worst types of crimes that could happen to anyone. And so it makes a difference. And so I would say to our working families out there, have hope, work hard, try to find pathways to uplift your family, but also recognize that your hard work could create real change makers.
All right. And that's it for All About Nothing, and we'll talk to you guys later. And good luck to you.
Hey, thank you. Join us at KevinMorrisonForCongress.com, and please vote March 17th.
There you go.